As a salesperson, why should you pay attention to how political parties do polls, and why does it matter? As a salesperson, why should you pay attention to political polls and how they're taken, and why does it matter? I'm Scott Sylvan Bell. I'm coming to you live from Sacramento, California on a perfect day to talk about sales and a perfect day to talk about polling data. We're going to talk a lot about psychology today. I'm going to have some fun. So this is one of the things that most people don't ever really deconstruct and they don't think about, but it has a lot of impact on your personal life with politics, but it also has a lot to do with how you sell. And so the other day, I'm driving down the road. It's political season right now. There's lots of voting going on in the next month. And so the phone rings and I pick it up and they say, hey, this is a poll and we want to find out about the town that you live in and we want to ask you some questions. And I go, hey, I'm driving right now, but I can get pulled over in a parking lot. I don't want to get pulled over. They said, hey, we'll call you right back. So I said, great. So I pull over and I grab my notebook because this really does help you. So one of the things that you need to know about polls when you listen to politics is the polls that you look at are meant to shape your opinion, but probably not in the way that you thought. So I want to talk to you about priming. And priming is if I need to sell a $10,000 product right now at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, earlier in my sales presentation, I'm going to use a huge number like 100,000. Like I've done this 100,000 times. Right? Or, I was at this $1 million house and it was a mansion. Well, $1 million is way up here, $10,000 product is way down here. So that's priming, okay? So you could use priming when you talk with your buyer. And they prime you when they call you when they talk about politics. I promise you they do. And then what they also use is the power of the first story. So no matter what political party you're affiliated with, no matter what symbol you like, right? Every party does this. They race to the microphone and they're like, hey, this is what's going on. Because you tend to believe the first story that you hear and reinforce it with your beliefs, even if it's proven wrong. That's crazy. So here's what the pollsters do to you, and I'm going to get to how you can use this in the sales process. So there's 3 people in my town running for mayor. There's a woman and 2 guys. And so they talk about the woman, they give her glowing reviews, and I'm like, that's kind of interesting. They talk about the first man, they give him okay reviews, but they kind of, they give him a little bit of a punch. They give him a jab, right? And then they talk about the third guy, and they beat this guy up. They just totally beat him up for all sorts of different reasons. I could tell who they're against. And the way that they're asking the question really does matter. So in this whole process, I'm trying to figure out who paid for this poll. Who is the person that I am supposed to go, aha, that's the perfect person for me to vote for? Well, in the case of this poll, it was the woman. Because when they got all the way to the end, they only asked about the men. They didn't continue the conversation and ask about the woman. So we've got priming, power of the first story, and then what I want to talk to you about is implanted information and how this really affects you as a salesperson. So today, this month, I get this phone call and they're asking and they're like, hey, what do you feel about this candidate? He did this, he did this, he did this. They are implanting positive or negative information into your brain because as you're sitting in the voting booth, you may not ever remember everything there is to know about that person that they're talking about, but in the back of your brain, there's like, wait a minute, there's an echo back here. I remember something about them, but I'm not quite clear on what it was, okay? So here's what you do. As a salesperson, you want to have priming, power of the first story, and be able to implant information into the mind of the buyer. And the way that you do that is through articles. The way that you do that is through videos. The way that you do that is through podcasts. And when that person goes looking for your product or service, you have the capability of doing small digs. This is where I see salespeople really screw up, is they try to go crazy and they go overboard, they go over the top. Now, I want to let you know I'm not an attorney, so I'm not giving you lessons on slander or libel. You got to check that out yourself. But where salespeople really screw this up is they try to do like a hard jab. They try to do like a crazy punch. They try to do a haymaker. And all they really needed to do was like a flick. Just a flick. Just a little bit of negative information. Just a little bit. And you're listening, Scott, like, I really want to go crazy and I want to go over the top. Don't do it. Okay? It's not a good idea. Just a little bit. And the way that you would phrase it is, a common problem that I see with widgets or gizmos, and you're going to give the weakness of whoever your competition is. Just a common problem that I see with the widget or the gizmo is fill in the blank, right? And what you're doing is you're laying little tiny traps for the person out in front of you. But when you go to a poll, you don't get to ask these questions. When a buyer's sitting with you, now that salesperson has to sell from the heels, or if someone's done this to you, you're selling and you go, I don't know how I'm going to deal with this. I mean, this has taken up a lot of my time, it's taken up a lot of my effort, okay? So as a salesperson, you should definitely be checking out polling when they call and they want to talk to you about politics. But just remember in the back of your brain that they are shaping your thoughts and they're shaping your belief by the way that they frame the question that they ask, or the statements that they make. They're meant to be a virus in your mind. And you can do the same thing too as a salesperson. Okay? That's pretty cool. It's also dangerous, so you have a responsibility. It's like Spider-Man, right? There's with great powers comes great responsibilities. You got to do the right thing. It's a good idea for you. Okay, so you got one thing to do from here. Just one thing. Find the subscribe button. Click on it. And every time I send out a video, you will get an update that says Scott Bell Consultant sent out a video. You should check it out, which you should. We'll see you soon. Aloha.